guys. I'm going to make a video here to show you guys what it's like to drive an LS400 on the highway. I wanted to make a video of this car before I sold it, kind of like I did with my Hilux Surf. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy. I'm going to set the camera up and hopefully you guys should be able to see what's going on. Alrighty. So again, this is a 1998 LS400. I'm just going to go for the drive here. Big California lane change here. So, first impressions. First impressions are really hard to give after you've owned a car for like a year. So I'll do my best, but I think I do remember the first time I did drive this car, and it was after recently driving here. I'm just gonna give it a full throttle run right here. So there's 80 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, 120, 130. Okay, that's good. So, yeah, it's got good power. It's not ridiculous, but it's definitely not underpowered. I think it really suits the car well, the amount of power it has. And that's coming from, you know, twin turbo Aristos and Silvias, and, you know, I think it's adequate. Nothing to complain about. So anyways, yeah, back to first impression. So I was looking to buy a car, having owned Aristos and enjoyed them. I was looking to buy a second generation Lexus GS, and I went and I looked at a GS 430, and it was nice. It was quicker than this because it felt a little lighter, but when I got in this car had more kilometers than the GS I drove. And it was immediately apparent how much better aged this car was. Now, I don't know if it's just this LS or if it's an LS thing, but and after owning Aristos, which are just like the first generation GS, and even the second generation for that matter, right away I could tell that it felt like as if every single ball joint and control arm in the car were thicker. You know, the whole thing felt newer and more solid than the GS. And it wasn't just in the steering. I mean, the steering might be a little more, I don't know, sporty in the GS. Not that the GS has a sporty feeling steering, but it's sportier than this. But I felt like just going down the highway, it was immediately obvious how much nicer the LS was in terms of just driving true, you know, being able to let go of the steering wheel and not worry about the car just completely losing. Now, again, this might all had to do with the one GS I looked at being compared to the one LS I'm driving now. You know, pretty small sample size, so it's kind of hard to say they're all the same. But even after owning two first generation Aristos, I never felt like they were flimsy cars, but they do go through their ball joints really often. That's just something they do. But these aren't much better for that either. All of the big body Toyota sedans seem to chew through their ball joints. Not that bad though. I mean, really, we're talking like maybe once every 80,000 kilometers or something. So it's not a problem. But it just felt like this was a better built car. It felt heavier, even though on paper I don't think it really is. The way the doors shut felt a little better, and the GS's feel great. They feel better than the majority of the cars on the road, but the LS definitely seemed to have just a little bit more strength in its inherent design. I don't know, it's hard to describe, and again, it might just be the two samples I tested, but I don't know, I liked it so much I bought it, and I didn't really need a second car. I already had my AE86. I just was so impressed by the way it drove that I bought it, and I thought it would be a nice car for the winter, and it was actually. I got stuck once, and that one time I got stuck, it wouldn't have mattered if I had a front wheel drive. I would have gotten stuck anyways. So really, the car's served its purpose very well. I couldn't ask for more, really. And I'm looking to sell it now because, you know, if you guys know me, I don't keep my cars for very long. I mean, I've had this thing for about a year now, and it feels like an old shoe already, you know, even though it's only been a year. But yeah, so I'm looking to sell it, try something else for the next while. But if you guys are interested in buying an LS, they're cheap and they're really reliable. I mean, most really expensive luxury cars are cheap because they're unreliable and nobody wants to pay for the maintenance on them. These aren't cheap because they're unreliable and they're going to cost you a fortune. These are just cheap. I guess it's kind of because they're not the greatest things on gas, but they're really not that bad. Currently I'm getting 6.5 liters per 100K, but that's cruising at 80 kilometers an hour down a straight road, so it doesn't get much better as far. Tank average is 12 liters per 100K, and I've been driving it a little hard, but and most of this tank has gone working for me driving to work and back, which is an extremely short commute where my water temperature barely even starts to move by the time I get to work. So that's really a pretty extreme duty cycle for trying to, you know, get a gauge of the expected mileage you might get. I think in general, though, it hasn't been any worse than my Aristos. I think it's been better than my turbocharged Aristos and maybe even other turbocharged cars I've had. It really isn't that bad. But I've heard that it's pretty normal nowadays to get like 30 miles to the gallon, and I've never owned a vehicle that gets anywhere close to that, so I guess my perspective is a little off compared to where it should be in modern time. But anyways, one of the other things that's really nice about the LS, and I really noticed in the LS, is the variable power steering. It's super easy to turn the wheel when you're going slow, but it actually tightens up really nicely when you're going fast, and there's no slack in there. When you drive the car slow, you feel like there might be slack in the system because of how loose it feels. But as soon as you're actually driving at a decent rate, the steering gets extremely precise. There's body roll. I mean, this car's got 250,000 kilometers on it, so there's probably more body roll now than there ever has been on the car, but it's still not bad. It's a comfortable ride, and that's what it's going for. But I think if you were to put coilovers on this car, it would completely change it, and you'd have a whole new beast. But yeah, I think it's a nice car. When I bought it, I was pretty proud of it, even though it's an old man's car, especially with the color it's in, but I really didn't care. I just knew it was a nice car. So I was going around and I was showing everybody, and I was letting everybody drive it too, because it's a super easy car to drive, you know. It's like the first car I've owned where it's just like, yeah, take the keys, go, I don't care, you know, like you can't screw this up. It's a really simple car to drive. And I had my aunt guess how many kilometers, and she was only off by about 120,000 kilometers. She guessed it had like 120 on it, and it had 240 at the time, right? And my dad was so impressed after driving Buicks and domestics to see a car with 250,000 kilometers be in this kind of shape. He never really seen anything like that, and he was so impressed that he went and actually bought an LS 430, which is the next generation of this car. And so now we have 2 LSs at the house, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video here. I'm just pretty much on my way home now, so thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, hey, because I plan on doing some more of these.